Retro Rewind. Retro Rewind. 20 years of radio history, celebrating over 30 years of the greatest songs ever made.
Retro Rewind. Retro Rewind. One-on-one.
Hi, this is Christopher Cross, and you're listening to Retro Rewind with Dave Harris.
This is Retro Rewind. Retro Rewind.
Let's go to your first number one hit from August of 1980. Of course, Ride Like the Wind had came out, went to number 2. Mm-hmm. It was a good little introduction, and I think I read that since, Michael McDonald was on the single with you and, kind of helped give you a push, they wanted to release another single, which was what I Really Don't Care Anymore.
You don't know anymore. Yeah, that actually
Really
wasn't.
Don't Know
No,
Anymore.
it was actually. I wanted to release Really Don't Know Anymore because I felt it was up tempo and a better follow to our Ride Like the Wind because it had Michael on it as well. So that was actually myself that wanted that. Mo Austin, who was chairman of the board of Warner Brothers, is the one that wanted to release Sailing, and I was very much against it because I felt it was, kind of an introspective song as a single. But he's the one that really insisted it. He really ran the company, and he's been a great record man for a lot of years. But I fought it pretty adamantly. But Mo made the ultimate decision. It came out, and he was right. But I just didn't feel like a song that was that artistic and kind of introspective could connect to the public in that way. But it did, and I think that's kind of the unique thing about it.
Yeah, because you had, I read you had sent some demos out around 75 or so, and I think around 78 they finally signed you, right, Warner Brothers. So.
Yeah, initially they signed me for my voice. They fed out a radio-friendly voice.
Yeah.
And originally I was supposed to record other people's material, but Michael Amarty and my producer sort of fought for doing my own material, and it worked out. But initially they weren't interested. They weren't really convinced about me recording my own stuff. It was really just my voice that they liked.
Wow, that's just something.
So I would be doing covers, covers, but other writers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Nashville thing, right?
Yeah, and so then we convinced it, and then Ride Like the Wind came out and went well. And so, but yeah, I was against Sailing, and I think it's. It's probably my favorite tune that I've written, but again, a lot of writers have told me that's the interesting thing about it is that it's a song that's sort of, it's an artistic song that was also a hit.
Yeah.
And I guess, from a lot of writers I've talked, their point of view is that it's hard to do,
Oh, yeah. Now, do you have any, maybe a couple of quick stories about recording the song or even writing it? I mean...
Well, I think the songs... goes pretty. The songs were a few years old by the time the record came out in 1980, but it's a song that was. Joni Mitchell's a huge influence. Songs written in a modal tuning, which is a style of writing that Joni uses a lot. She uses a lot of modal tunings, and so that was something she influenced me about, and it sort of created a different palette for me, which the song comes from. And the sailing thing, I did sail a bit when I was a kid with an older friend. Was kind of a surrogate big brother. We did have some really nice times, but that metaphor is really just kind of a pleasant metaphor. I could have picked, he could have easily taken me bowling, but I think to me the song has a deeper meaning than just sailing in a boat. The canvas can do miracles. Really, the canvas is a painter's canvas.
Sure.
Or any kind of art transition that we experience through art. So the place is talking about going to paradise.
Yeah.
The place it takes you away to is what art does to you when you interact with it, and that's that transition that I'm really speaking of. But sailors, have certainly embraced it as their anthem, and
Absolutely.
A lot of rich guys with boats, so that never hurts.
No, not at all. Now, do you remember what you were doing when you found out it hit number 1?
I don't really know where I was then. After my first record came out, I did a tour with Bonnie Raitt, and Bonnie, it was kind of my first experience went out with Bonnie, which was great because she's just so sweet and was a veteran. And then Don Henley from the Eagles had been a friend from Texas before my album came out. I knew Don, he was very supportive, and he sang on my record. And then pretty quickly he took me out with the Eagles for about a year or so. I opened for them.
Wonderful.
And I opened for them, and then through Don, there was exposure to the Fleetwood people, and Stevie.
Yeah.
Stevie and Lindsay really liked the record, and then they took me out. So I had two long tours, one with the Eagles, one with Fleetwood.
Wow, and that may be one reason why the album sustained so long on the charts too.
Yeah, it was a big hit. I mean, when I was out with the Eagles, Ride Like the Wind was number 1, or whatever, number 2. It was only number 2 because Blondie.
I didn't want
Blondie called me.
Call
she
me.
only had it out as a single, and the charts were driven by single sales.
That's right.
So she held me out, that bitch. But I never forgave her for that. But no, so we went out, with the Eagles, and it really definitely sustained it, and it was great. Although Donna and Glenn used to always call me the new kid in town.
Oh, how about that?
Which was kind of a prophetic, tongue-in-cheek sort of insult, because the song.
Right, of
and
course.
the song, but yeah, it was a great start. It was wonderful to get out on that kind of level, you know.
And of course to win all those Grammys for your work in that song as well. I mean, I know you've told this story a million times, but the work stands for itself. You know, you got what you had coming to you, I think. And
well, thanks. Yeah, it was a great run there. You know, that releasing the record and having it do well at radio, and then the Grammys were a great thing. And you know, it was a very exciting time. Certainly, it all happened very fast. To come from clubs and being a local musician to have all this happen. I remember at the Grammys. When I finally got the last award, Billy Joel stood, and then after Billy was on the front row and stood, I got this standing ovation, and that was the thing I remember most about that night. And then I remember telling Billy later what it meant to me, and it was amazing, because I just come from playing clubs and this kid from Texas, and Billy Joel's like standing up.
Isn't that amazing?
And there were all these famous people like Barbra Streisand around, and so it was a lot of fun. But I love playing live, and like I said, Don was really gracious to be so supportive and put me in that opening spot, which put me in. We were playing 60,000 seaters and stuff, so it was great.
In October of '81, you had another number one hit, which would be your biggest hit, the Arthur's Theme. Now that song had 4 songwriters. You're usually a guy who writes by himself. So I believe from what I read that was your first foray into co-writing, correct?
Yeah, the first 2 albums of my own I wrote by myself. What happened was Stephen Paley with the picture company brought the script to me, Stephen Gordon's script to me, and asked me to score the picture. Yeah. And I was definitely the new kid in town, and won the Grammys and everything. So I started looking. I loved the script. Stephen was a brilliant writer. He subsequently died about 6 weeks after Arthur was released, but I loved it and started working on it, even though I'd never scored a film. But Stephen decided that I was too inexperienced to really score the movie. And he just felt uncomfortable with that. So they took it away from me, which I wasn't really that disappointed, because I'd never scored a movie anyway. It was just another thing. Some of the things were being thrown at me. So they called and said, we're going to give it to somebody else. And it turned out to be Burt Bacharach to score the movie. And so then Burt called me and said, look, Carol and I are going to work on a theme song for the movie. Would you want to write it with us? Because we understood you were involved and all that stuff. And I said, sure, great. So I went over to their house at midnight one night. And it was exciting. I mean, Burt's a huge influence on me, a legendary writer, and they lived in Beverly Hills, this big house, and they had.
You're a kid from Texas.
Yeah, it was like they had all this fancy furniture. And so it was. Burt had Oscars on his mantle, so it was very exciting to work with them on the tune, and then Peter's involvement was a bit long distance, because Peter was in Australia, but there was there was a line from the song that was very important, that came from an unfinished song of Carol and Peter's that Carol thought of when we were working on the lyric at the house when you get up to New York City, And so she thought of it, and I loved the line, thought it was great. So she called Peter in Australia, and he said, we're probably never finish the song. And so it became part of the song. He sort of wrote long distance, but it's the most important line of the song. So
it's a heavy line, isn't it?
Yeah, Peter certainly deserves his credit. He was a wonderful guy. I miss very much. I was friends with Peter, and he was a brilliant talent. So. It was kind of 4 on a song, but it was sort of incidental that it kind of came out that way. But, it was a thrill to work with them, and it brought me into a whole nother element of like the Hollywood scene, because, not only with them, but also them getting involved with Dudley, and going to parties with Lauren Bacall and all that stuff. It was another, so soon after the Grammys, it was another kind of mind-blowing thing. But Dudley was a sweetie, and he was always very nice to me and would take me places. He and I did a lot of shows together where I would sing and he'd play piano, because he was
wasn't he?
Very accomplished pianist. And we had a lot of fun where he'd play piano and I would sing, and we did a lot of performances on TV shows and things. So it was a wonderful experience. And then Burt and Carol and I wrote another song called "The Chance for Heaven" for the Olympics in LA for the swimming competition. It's called "The Chance for Heaven," and we wrote that as well. So and then I collaborated more with people as time went on, but. It was intimidating. Burt's a brilliant, writer, incredible, harmonic mind, and all the work he did with Hal David. I mean, as a songwriter, the work that they created is, pretty hallmark to most writers. So it was great. Yeah.
Retro Rewind. Visit Retro Rewind's website at www.retrorewind.com. RetroRewind.com. Games and links to everything retro, from recording artists to TV shows and movies from the 80s and 90s.